Hi guys, what can we do in these times with these viruses flowing around? We have the flu going around. Certain parts of Africa are struggling still with Ebola. The rest of the world seems to be caught up in COVID-19 or coronavirus as they also call it. And what can we do? I mean, the business is just dead these days. There is no movement in the store. My store has been closed for 3 weeks. Probably still be closed for another 4 weeks at the minimum. Online sales have plummeted to about zero. We have gone here at Realistic Audio from several $1,000s in sales each month to $98 total sales in March. $98. You can't live on that. It's not even worth putting the key in the door and open up and turn the lights on, you know? I pay twice that, or maybe even more, in utility bills each month. So yeah, small businesses are struggling. Doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're a restaurant, used audio or new audio or car audio or whatever, car dealerships are struggling. Everyone is slow. I went to have lunch yesterday at a friend's place that has some of the best wings in Memphis. And I walked in there, and normally when I walk in there during lunchtime to get lunch, there's normally like 8 or 9 or 10 people in line waiting to get their food. I was there alone yesterday. There was no one there. So I asked him, hey, is it slow for you? And he's like, I've never seen anything like it. So I understand totally what he goes through. So that means that I have plenty of time to do videos, because that means there is certain part of the business that I have totally just put on ice for now. There's no use of doing it. We're trying and scrambling to make good offers for people. We're trying to sell a few things here and there, and we're trying to get things out the door as fast as possible. So I've been kind of like busy the last 2 or 3 days, coming up with some videos that I want to make for you guys, and we have one here. I did a test yesterday with this one. I got this one about a month ago, I think it is. I haven't had time to get around to do anything with it. I knew it worked because it was tested when I picked it up, so I know it works. So yesterday I put together a 2-hour test of this one and some other equipment just to see and to make some videos. What do we have here? Well, this is the Realistic STA-2100D. This was on the market from 1979 and 1980. I think they discontinued it in late 1980. It is a 120 watt per channel receiver. It has a THD of 0.04. Signal to noise is 70 dB or 75 dB in DIN. So that's pretty normal and pretty standard for most receivers of mid to late 70s and early 80s. It wasn't really until like mid 80s, late 80s that you could see that the receivers started to get a higher signal to noise ratio. And when I say higher, it was like 80, 85, stuff like that. Power amps and integrated amps have higher, but for receivers, that's pretty normal. It's a heavy little beast, 21.5 kilograms, probably around 50 pounds or so. It's a huge sucker. It's a huge one. I had it over here on the shelf with some other receivers from the same time era. And they are dwarfs compared to this one. I mean, I had another Realistic over there, and a JVC, and what's the last one I have over there? JVC, Realistic, and Scott. And they're small. The Scott is fairly big too, but it's not as deep. It's just it's same width, and maybe almost the same height, but it's not as deep. This one's very deep. Wood cabinet, real wood cabinet with a metal plate on the back to let air out, hot air out, and for cooling. because this one draws quite a bit of power. I have tested many receivers in the past that has the same type of wattage per channel, and in the same range. And when I say the same range, we're talking about 100 to about 140, 50 watt per channel. Like I said, this one comes in at 120 per channel. It has all the bells and whistles that you would want and what you would expect from a receiver in this size. Beside the STA-2100, this is the D, but the 2100, which was a very bad thing for Realistic, because they got sued by Pioneer on that one, and they had to stop making it. So there's not many of those around. They're quite rare, and I think the 2100, if I'm not mistaken, had 125 watt per channel. But they had to do something because they got sued, and that's when they scrambled and they came out with this STA-2100D. There was something about the power transformer that Pioneer had patent on that was used in the other one, and that's why they had to stop making it. But they managed to make a few, but they are few and far in between. You will be extremely lucky if you can find an STA-2100 blank, no D, no B, no A. This one you can find, but this one is still also hard to find. It's not like if you look online, go on eBay and you look up vintage receivers, and you type in like Pioneer, Sansui, Marantz, even Scott, even JVC, Toshiba, and all these other brands, Hitachi, you will find like a long list of receivers. You will also find a long list of Realistic receivers, but you will find the smaller models. The 2100D and the 2100 are kind of like, the 2100 is just almost impossible to find. And when you do, it can, if it's in good condition, it can like go for $2,500, $2,000 to $2,500. I've seen them. I've seen a few that has been lower than that, like $1,400-$1,500, but they have had some issues. This one, the STA-2100D, I have seen online from probably the lowest I've seen, if I can remember correctly, was like right around $495, $500 plus shipping. The better ones in working condition, I've seen them go all the way up to $850, $900. And I think I saw one mint condition one. It was like had been refurbished, serviced, and nice casings. And I think that one sold even for like a year and a half, 2 years ago, for $1,250 plus shipping. So these are very sought after. Now let's get to the meat of the bone. How does it perform? This one has a few issues. Nothing operational issues. It needs new bulbs in the meters here. Easy fix, cheap fix, 10, 15, $20 at the most, and you get new lights in there. You can upgrade to LED. That's not a problem. And it will look really nice with LED lights in here. It has some cosmetics issues on the wood on top, on corners. But I mean, what can you expect after like 35, 40 years, you know? So if you can live with the cosmetics, maybe sand it down, do a restain, you can get this one back in good shape. The biggest issue with this one is, and it's not even a big issue, but let me see if I can find it there. It's the power cord. It got trapped in a door jamb, a metal door jamb at one point, and it had like a nick in the isolation around the cable. So it has been taped with electro tape and some other tape around it over there. So what I have to do on this one, I have to cut this one off and put a new plug on it. Not a big thing, $4 or $5 should be done, and it's good to go. But that's the only thing. That's the only big issue on it. And of course, the little cosmetic. There's a thing on top, one thing on top here. Seems like someone rubbed something on it. And of course, the corners and edges. But I mean, sand it down and restain it. I think I'm going to do that before I sell it. This is one candidate that I think is worth absolutely putting some time into. So for $25, $30, $40, I can have this one really nice. So I hooked it up yesterday. I used a Denon DVD player, and I also used my phone with 3.5mm jack to RCA. So I tested both. I tested a Denon DVD player with a CD in it to get to see how it sounds with a CD quality playback, and I did some YouTube videos to see how it kind of like reproduce that type of format as well. And let me tell you right off that yeah, this one delivers. This one delivers 120 watt per channel. I have to say, in the mid range of receivers, when I'm talking about power, you have like the normal low wattage ones, which is like 15, 20 watts up to like 40, 50 watts. Those are the ones I consider to be low wattage or low power receivers. And then you have the other step up, which is like 50 to about 80, 85 watts per channel, which is a huge improvement from the first category. And then you come into this mid area, mid plus we can call it. The other one is mid, and this is mid plus. Mid plus is like from 85, 90 and up to 150. And then of course you have the high power ones, which is like above there, up to about 330 watts per channel. But in the mid plus segment, where this one is competing with other receivers, let's say 90 watts up to 150, and I've heard quite a few in that range, both Silverface 1970s and 80s stuff and newer stuff. This one, oh Lord, it has the power, that's for sure. It doesn't lack power for most speakers. Would I hook this one up to, let's say, 3 or 4-way 15-inch Certain Vegas? You can, and you can get a decent result. Don't expect anything like if you use a 300 watt power amplifier, but it gives a decent result. Now, if you put it up to like, hook it up to like a 2-way or 3-way, a little bit smaller speaker, maybe that has a 10-inch woofer, 12-inch woofer, this one will give you a good sound and a powerful sound. I tested this one even on some D7, Certain D7 that has 12-inch, and I was surprised how good it sounded. Can I get those speakers to play louder, more bass, more punch? Sure. I put 250, 300, 350 watts on them, and that will happen. But I mean, even with this one, you got amazing results. I also put it on the Realistic Nova 8 that I have here, and I put them on. I also tested this one with the Techniques 3-way with a 12-inch woofer. Really sounded good on those Techniques. I put them on. I put some Yamaha speakers on here, and it was like, that was maybe the best combination that I tried yesterday. The Yamaha speakers and this one. The Yamaha is a 2-way with a 12-inch woofer, so you get that nice punch and a nice bass in the bottom. I mean, this one it's turning out to be maybe one of my favorites in this category, in this size. I would take this one over a Kenwood. I would take this one over a Pioneer. I would take this one over a Toshiba, a Hitachi receiver in the same range. The other ones that maybe are comparable to this one are Sansui and Scott. I like those two brands a lot, and this one is right up there with Sansui and Scott when it comes to performance, looks, gadgetry, ease of use, and the overall quality feel of it. It's a heavy sucker, and I mean, when you touch the knobs and you turn them around and you flip up and down the flip knobs, it has that good quality feel on it. I mean, it is tight. It is exactly how it should be. The jog wheel for the tuner is extremely nice. Extremely nice. The push button, when you push them, you can feel that there's quality behind it. Some receivers, the cheaper ones, are very flimsy. I've had some Kenwoods with like plastic buttons on the front that you push in and out, and they feel cheap, and they are cheap, and they feel flimsy because they are a little bit flimsy. This one is not. This one is built solid like a tank, and that's maybe the one thing that has surprised me the most is the build quality on this one. Because let's face it, it wasn't a big brand name. It didn't have the attention like Sansui, Pioneer, Marantz, Yamaha, and stuff like that. Realistic was a company that made stuff abroad in Japan and Korea, and they kind of like, okay, they had a couple of engineers that was sitting there making plans on how they want to have things done, and they sent those plans over to the factory, and it was built for them. But you know, back then you didn't have the same possibility of quality control as you have today. Today you can have operational officers and quality officers almost located on spot to oversee production, and still they're not doing it. But back then, yeah, this really was a big statement for them. And I suspect these receivers here with the Realistic, the STA-2100 and 2100D, because of the power that they have and the rugged build quality that they have and the sound quality that they have, I suspect these took quite a bit of a market from the other leading brands like Marantz and Pioneer and Sansui, Yamaha, and maybe even Hitachi and Toshiba and Scott. I think this one came on the market and took quite a bit of a market share, because you have to remember that once they got sued over the 2100, people started going like, oh, maybe there are something about Realistic that, because yeah, I've had quite a bit of Realistic gear, and it's almost like you get what you're paying for. Okay, some is really good and some is just okay. It's okay. This one is one of those that are really good. So I was really surprised how it acted with big speakers. It had an iron hand on small to medium speakers, as you would expect and you want. And it was running those speakers like a commando soldier, and it was just like very controlled. Even though it doesn't have the biggest damping factor, it still had control over small and medium speakers. But when I hooked them up to a little bit bigger speakers, I was still surprised how good it sounded and how powerful it sounded, and still how good of a control it had. I think it maybe will lose a little bit of that control when you hook it up to some 15-inch 3 or 4 ways, when you start to push it really hard. But if you use it with a Soren Vega or other speakers with 10 and 12-inch woofers and 2 and 3 way configuration, yeah, I feel that it has some control that some of the other receivers maybe lack. So I've been trying to find online the damping factor on it, but I couldn't. But I would probably suspect that it has the normal thing of anywhere between 40 and 100 maybe in damping factor. Probably maybe closer to like 60, 70, 80, maybe 90, something around there. Not terrible, but it's like, I mean, I am of that opinion that if you're going to have an amplifier or receiver or something, it should have a damping factor of about 280, a minimum 280, and up. But I mean, I didn't lose control yesterday when I tested it. I tested it on, let's see, how many pair of speakers did I do? I did the Yamaha, the D7. I did some Sony speakers that has a 3-way configuration with a 10-inch woofer. I did the Realistic Novas. I did some JBL monitors that are up here, the 2500 ones. And I did the Soren Vega V5. I did some other JBL monitors over here. I did quite a bit of a few. There was like almost 10 pair of speakers, I think. Because I wanted to see how it played on a huge scale of speakers, okay? And it didn't matter what speaker I put on it. It sounded good. And it sounded powerful. It sounded like, okay, on the smaller speakers, like the Soren Vega V5, the JBL 2500, and the JBL monitors and the Sonys, I felt that this one was too powerful, because you could barely turn it up before, like, you could kind of like, okay, the speakers are the speakers are not handling this more now. So, but once I put on the Yamaha speakers with 12-inch, the Techniques with 12-inch, and the Certain Vega with 12-inch, it changed, because those speakers have the ability and the potential to take more power. And I feel that this one really plays good in that area of speakers where you have maybe 2 or 3 way, and you have a 10-inch woofer or a 12-inch woofer, that are kind of like have a high sensitivity, or a fairly good sensitivity. And I really liked how it played on the Technics CB77, I think there are the model name on them, and it played really good on the Yamaha speakers. That was my favorite, and it played good on the Certain Vega D7. The only time that I was wanting more, or what I was craving more or wanting more, was when I played them on the Certain Vega D7, because that's what. It's not because of the receiver itself, but it's because I know what the D7 can do with a more powerful amp, because I used them for years with more powerful amp, so I know what those Certain Vega speakers can do with more power. So that's the only thing that I was like, I could have had some more right now. I could have had some more power, could have had some more control. But I mean, if I was going to rate this one from 1 to 10 on performance, let's do performance, and then let's do looks, not as used. Let's pretend that this one came right out of the box. How does it look? What is the look on it? How does it appeal to me? When it comes to looks, I want to say 8.5, 9. It's really nice laid out. It looks really fantastic. It looks really good. So now I want to give it a 9. I'll give it a 9. I like the looks on it. Performance wise, from 1 to 10, where 10 is the best, on small and medium sized speakers, 9. On bigger speakers, I'll probably go down to like 7.5. Just because I think that it suffers the same thing as all other receivers. They don't have enough power, and they don't have enough control. They have it up to a certain point, and then they fall off. So there you go. Would I recommend the Realistic STA-2100D? Absolutely. It is fast becoming one of my favorite receivers of that era, late 70s, early 80s. And just because it has more power than most of them. I have tons of receivers from that era, and most of them are 25 to 75 watts per channel. This is the most powerful one that I have in stock right now, and this is my favorite. I've had many Pioneers, I've had many Sansui, I have had many Marantz receivers, I have had many Scott, Yamaha, Toshiba, and I have to say that this Realistic, along with some of the Scott models and Sansui models, are my favorite. This one is really good. So if you're looking for a great receiver, look up the Realistic 2100D, STA-2100D. If you can find the 2100, just jump on it if you can get it for a good price. Until next time, guys, take care.